testify. The governing body is happy for our organisation to participate.
We will never change our scriptural position on that subject.
Welcome to the show. Thank you all for coming. It's so nice to be with you guys again. Now, we just had a song, and I thought maybe today we should open with prayer, hey? Yeah? Okay, here goes. Rub-a-dub-dub, enjoy the grub. Nice and short and sweet, right? That's what we want. We don't enjoy these 5-minute marathon prayers that we all had to endure at the district, whatever, regional conventions. But, okay, on a serious note, it was a bit of a bummer last Friday when we got the news that the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that if you were expelled from the JW congregation or any JW congregation, that you weren't able to appeal it any further to any other court. Yes, it was a bummer. It wasn't really a surprise, to be honest with you. But it was disappointing to see, and, you know, kind of rubbed a little salt in the wound to see JW.org boasting about it on their website. It's the line at the end that gets me. We rejoice in this vindication of Jehovah's righteous standards. I don't know, but expelling and shunning people doesn't seem like something to rejoice about. To me, it's a huge embarrassment and blight on their organization. I just wish that the government understood undue influence and how organizations like the Jehovah's Witnesses one manipulate people to their own detriment. I mean, they kept comparing it throughout the case. They kept comparing leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses or being expelled from them like as if you were being expelled from a book club or something. But it's nothing like that. I mean, come on, there's a huge difference. When you leave a book club, you can still remain friends with the members. You know, I don't want to be part of the book club, but let's go for lunch. Sure. Not if you leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. You're dehumanized and shunned and treated like you don't even exist. They will not be your friends. And these could be your family, your own family doing this to you. It's nothing like that at all. And this is a tax-free charity. How can a charity do this to people? Have you ever heard of a charity that does this kind of thing to people? I would love to see this taken away from them. Take away their tax-free status. And then they might actually change their ways. So at the end of the court case, they could say, you know what, you have the right to expel members, but you don't have the right to shun them. You don't have the right to cut them off from society like that and dehumanize them and slander them. And if you do, we will take away your tax-free status and then see what happens. You know, money seems to be the one thing that motivates JW.org to make changes in their policy. I wanted to do a video on this because a lot of interesting things came out of this court case. I don't know if you know the backstory to the whole thing, but I'll just do a quick rundown of it. In 2014, Randy Wall was expelled from the organization. He was, or is, a real estate agent, and he was a Jehovah's Witness. And he was disfellowshipped because he was apparently drunk twice, and he had verbally abused his wife once. He said that the reason this had happened was due to the fact that their 15-year-old daughter had been disfellowshipped as well, just before this. And the organization and the congregation was encouraging him and his wife to not only shun their 15-year-old daughter, but they were wanting them to expel her from their home. And he said that the pressure and the stress that he felt from what was happening was why he acted the way he did. You know, if this happened to me, if I had elders telling me to kick out and shun my son, I think I'd just go all she-bear on them. And you can read about this at 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 23 to 35. Wall appealed his disfellowshipping decision to the elders, and, saying that, he was undergoing all this stress within his family and he's appealing to them, to their hearts, but they decided to show no mercy. So he wrote to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Canada, to their branch office, and again asked them for mercy, but they decided to show him none. So then, having exhausted all appeals within the organization, he appealed outside the organization to the outside courts. And this is where it gets interesting. If you're shunned by the organization, you don't have a chance to, you could take it to court, but it's not going to go anywhere. But if you could prove that you lost money as a result, that's a reason to be able to sue them, which is what he did. So he didn't even get a lawyer. He put together his own case. He sued them in an outside court and he won. And the congregation appealed it. And it went to the Supreme Court of Alberta, the provincial court, and he won again. And then the congregation appealed a second time, and it was taken and accepted by the Supreme Court of Canada. And this is where we saw that he lost. But it was pretty amazing, the fact that he was able to take it that way all the way up to the Supreme Court without a lawyer. In the end, he did have a lawyer in the Supreme Court, but it's pretty amazing that he was able to take it as far as he did. And as I said, though, it wasn't a big surprise that he lost. But there were some surprises from the case. And I want to just point out what some of these were. Now, first of all, did you know that 8 out of the 10 organizations that came to support JW.org in this Supreme Court case were religious organizations? Yes, we had Sikhs and we had Muslims and we had Seventh-day Adventists, and there were 4 other evangelical churches that came to work with JW.org against Randy Wall. We all know that the Bible says to touch nothing unclean, get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share in her sins. Yet here they all are, happily working and conspiring together. Here's a picture of our happy heathens. The JW lawyer elder is in the forefront, working shoulder to shoulder with false religion. And this isn't the first time that JW.org has been in there like a dirty shirt supporting false religions. We have the Jimmy Swaggart fiasco. Jimmy Swaggart, the prominent televangelist who was defrocked by his own church for various sexual scandals involving prostitutes and so forth. JW.org actually went out of their way to support him. Yes, as they say, birds of a feather flock together. Check this out. In the early 1980s, the state of California informed Jimmy Swaggart Ministries that he owed $183,000 in taxes for religious books and tapes sold. He eventually paid, but sued for a refund. The case ended up in the U.S. Supreme Court. JW.org was very interested in the outcome because it could mean that their Watchtower publication sales could also be taxed. So they filed what you see in front of you. Here, it's an amicus curiae. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Latin for friends of Satan. Oh, sorry, a friend of the court. Yes, they are friends of false religion when it's convenient for them. They will whore themselves out when money is at stake. So these are more pages from their friend of the court briefing that the Watchtower filed for the Jimmy Swaggart case. You can see they say there that it clearly imposes a burden on their work. They'd have to obtain permits from the state. But their real motivation was the taxes, as you can see here. The filing of quarterly taxes, and there'd be other taxing authorities who would also want money. And then as we go through it there, they always hide behind the First Amendment. Hey, we have our rights, blah, blah, blah. Tax, tax, tax. First Amendment this, First Amendment that. Watchtower agrees with Jimmy Swaggart Ministries. And all the burdens that would be imposed. In January of 1990, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Jimmy Swaggart had to pay the taxes after all. And then wouldn't you know it, out of the blue, JW.org comes out and says that, oh, we've got this new donation arrangement. Isn't that great? With no mention, of course, about the Jimmy Swaggart fiasco. No, suddenly letters were being sent out to congregations, demonstrations were being done. And I remember it well because I was one of the people demonstrating on the platform what we were supposed to be saying when we're asking for these donations. Check out some of the letters that were sent out. So this was dated February 9th, 1990, to all bodies of elders in the United States and its territories. And notice what I've highlighted there. It says, recent Supreme Court decisions have opened the way for secular authorities to possibly categorize our literature distribution as commercial activity. To prevent this misportrayal of the spiritual nature of our activity, and to continue to give the good news of the kingdom the widest possible distribution, we are adjusting the Society's literature distribution arrangement. These simplified operations will clarify the voluntary and religious nature of our work. So they're going to have a complete donation arrangement. Notice it says we are not motivated by financial interest when preaching the good news. We are not peddlers of the word of God as many men are. So isn't it interesting how they changed their strategies here? So they had no problem supporting it before when they tried to prevent these tax laws from taking place. But when they lost, suddenly, oh, we have a donation arrangement. We're not motivated by money. Oh, that's not the issue. We believe these adjustments will lighten the workload for you brothers, as if they're doing you a favor by doing this. So March 1st, 1990 is when it was all going to come about. Page 2 here brings out, again, they're not motivated by money, but attention should be given to the placement of these contribution boxes near the magazine and literature counters. Maybe they do want your money after all. Then another letter was sent out here, February 21st, 1990. Notice it says there in what's highlighted, by adopting a method of literature distribution based completely on donations, Jehovah's people are able to greatly simplify our Bible education work and separate ourselves from those who commercialize religion. Again, it's so crazy. They had no problem getting the money from their literature before, but now suddenly that they lost and they're going to have to pay taxes, suddenly it's a big issue. They were supporting it before. Remember that. And then notice down here how concerned they are with your money after all. It says the publisher may inform the subscriber that some have donated $5 and others $10 or more. But the amount is left up to the subscriber. Yes, just plant it in their heads to give $5 or $10, please, for their magazines. And as it says there, if it turns out that a subscriber does not make a donation, as Jehovah God's fellow workers, we have the opportunity to support the work depending on our circumstances. So if the household doesn't choose to donate, you, of course, can donate. There's nothing stopping you from donating it again. And this is exactly what happened. They ended up double dipping. They ended up giving money for the literature when they picked it up at the literature counter in the congregation, and then when they gave it to the householder, the money that they got from them, they were supposed to put back in the box as well. So there was double dipping that went on. So what can we learn from this? Well, we know that JW.org loves to announce their court activities whenever anything happens that's favorable to them. But for some reason, this huge embarrassment was not mentioned anywhere. It just makes it that much worse when you do find out, doesn't it? And a lot of people were stumbled. They could have done something like this. This is all just further proof that JW.org cherry picks what they allow their followers to know. They completely have to have the control all the time. So they only will tell you what is favorable, and they will hide anything that is shameful about their organization. We also learned that JW.org was dishonest in their explanation for this complete donation arrangement. Their main motivating factor was paying taxes. But again, they're being dishonest because they're not applying what Jesus said about paying back Caesar things to Caesar. They're also dishonest in that they were aligning themselves with false religion, something the Bible tells them not to do. The whole thing was a shameful act that nobody is supposed to know about. But of course, the information is out there for everyone to see if they do the research. So just getting back to the Randy Wall case now. If we were to watch it further, we would see that the elder who was the lawyer for them lied very much about their shunning. Let's have a look and see what he said.
As the meeting progressed with Mr. Wall, the elders came to the decision that Mr. Wall was not sufficiently repentant for his disgraceful conduct, and the congregation elders took the decision to disfellowship him. That word is used by Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses don't use the word shun or shunning. They refer to it as disfellowship, disfellowshipping, disfellowshipped, because that really gives the sense of what's taking place within this particular religious community. Disfellowship literally means no further spiritual fellowship with the individual. And as I point out, sorry, Chief Justice. As I point out at paragraph 22 of my factum, the nature of the relationship then of a disfellowship person is not completely shunned. The disfellowship person is able to come into the congregation, to the congregation meetings. They're able to attend in the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're able to sit wherever they like. They can sing the spiritual songs with the congregation. As far as their family members are concerned, normal family relations continue with the exception of spiritual fellowship.
So we can see from their own clips and publications, like that 2017 October Watchtower I had up on the screen, that the elder was in fact lying. He made it sound like it was actually a good thing to be shunned. You know, you get to do this and you get to do that. But why did he misrepresent it that way to the public? Why didn't he just tell the truth? Obviously, they're embarrassed about their shunning policy. I mean, whenever you have to lie about something and misrepresent it, it's obvious that you're hiding something, isn't it? You're not telling the truth about it. Why? You should be proud of it. You should be able to say, hey, it's in the Bible. Boom. This is why we do it. End of story. You know, but that's not what happens, is it? Instead, they lie about it. They've even gone so far as to say that people who leave shun them. It's just utter nonsense. Just because people like me don't want to be part of an organization who lies and who works hand in hand with false religion doesn't mean that I don't want to be friends with the members of that organization who happen to be my family and all the people that are part of my community. I just don't want to be part of the organization. But they don't accept that, do they? They have to besmirch your name and say bad things about you. Or the other reason why maybe they do this is because they want to lure people in under false pretenses. You know, it's not all pandas in paradise then, is it? Once they've got you in, you find out about the suicides and the fact that you've got to cut off your family. You might lose them. And you find out about all these horrible things that happen. When Randy Wall was disfellowshipped, he lost all his clients because all his clients were Jehovah's Witnesses. The elder lawyer tried to make out that witnesses are neither encouraged nor dissuaded from hiring fellow brothers. But that's not really true. It's not really the way it works within a congregation. If there are brothers within your congregation who are skilled laborers and are able to do work that you need done, like for example, you need an electrician to do something for you, and there's a brother who can do it, you're encouraged to go to your brothers. You wouldn't go to the world. They have this attitude that the world is going to rip you off and that the world is not to be trusted. It's Satan's, under his influence. So definitely, if you had kids that are to be put in a daycare, you would definitely go to a sister who has a daycare, for sure. And they'd look at you funny if you didn't go to them. Why wouldn't you have gone to me? I mean, that's definitely the way it works. I knew many cleaning businesses, for example, that were owned by Jehovah's Witnesses, and all their employees were also Jehovah's Witnesses. It's definitely the way it goes. Now, it's not always a good thing to hire a brother, because many times the work, well, I shouldn't say many times, but sometimes it doesn't turn out very well. The work may be shoddy, or the person may run off without finishing the work, and yet he took your money. Or you could be ripped off. I knew an elder who was an accountant who ripped many people off of tens of thousands of dollars. And what are you going to do then? You're going to take this brother to court?
So there are those remedies. Property and civil rights are available. But it has to be a property or civil right. Not just I'm aggrieved because I've lost my friends or I've lost business. if the court says that's a significant enough interest, it opens the door farther than it's ever been opened. This court has very carefully tried to maintain the limits on those kind of interventions by the court. So although for certain Mr. Wall has lost clients, members of the congregation, as long as he's disfellowshipped, would not normally turn to them. That's their personal decision that they make based on their religious conscience. But as Justice Wilson pointed out, that's to be expected. But then that's what Mr. Wall expected when he joined Jehovah's Witnesses at 20 years of age. He knew that it's that kind of community, and that's how they identify themselves. And that.
Oh, okay. So at 20 years of age, Randy Wall expected to be disfellowshipped and shunned, and expected to lose all his clients after not committing a gross sin. We learned he was drunk twice, which is probably less than many elders and most Bethelites, and not being sufficiently repentant as judged by the elders. You know, as I said, it was a judgment call. Would it have killed them to be merciful? Jesus said, I want mercy and not sacrifice. I mean, he told them, and they saw for themselves what he was going through. Clearly, he was having problems at home with his family, with his daughter. She was perhaps rebelling. I don't know the situation. I just know she was disfellowshipped, and they were encouraged to shun and expel her from their home. And was this really the best thing to do? Kick him out? Could they not have shown kindness and tried to help him through what he's going through? But you know, this is exactly what the elders do. It's exactly the way they handled it in my situation as well. They knew my situation. They knew what I was going through. But because people were talking, you know, no gross sin had been committed. I was repentant, but I wasn't sufficiently repentant, I guess, in their eyes. Or I think it was just a matter of too many people were talking. So instead of bestowing mercy, they decide to kick you when you're down and just throw you out and say, yeah, this is the best thing to do. Let's just throw these people out.
The congregation self-defines, and if that's what attracts members, as it says, the values of the religion, that's for them to decide. The congregation doesn't have property. It doesn't employ people. All the members are volunteers. They're making conscious choices as a religious congregation, and their basis of religious fellowship, their religious beliefs, is not to do that. And if you like that, great. We welcome the public to come and attend with Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you don't, that's your personal choice. And after a time, if you've been associated with Jehovah's Witnesses and you think this is not for you, you don't come again. You stop. It's not Lakeside Colony. Jehovah's Witnesses are in the community. Their kingdom halls are open to the public. There's no isolated community.
The lawyer here made it sound like this small congregation sets its own rules and does its own thing, and it self-defines, as he worded it. But this isn't true. They are completely subjected to whatever the rules are that JW Org comes out with. So whatever policies they have, whatever rules they have, this congregation is subjected to that. So they do not self-define and create their own rules. They certainly do not act on their own. And he also said that if you want to leave, you could just leave. But I'm telling you, the only way to really be able to do that is if you disappear. Like literally disappear. If you packed up and moved, many, many miles away, then you could start your life over, which is what I did. But as long as you're still in the community, they will besmirch your name. They will find a way, because they have to find a way to dehumanize you so that they can get away with the shunning. If you're a kind person who does nice things to people, that makes them wonder, right? Why are we shunning this person again? He's a nice guy. Why would I shun him? No, but if they could say things about you like, oh, he hates Jehovah, or he hates Jehovah's Witnesses, or he does this now, or he does that now, then it becomes easier for them to cut you off and to not have anything to do with you. And this is what really goes on. And the fact is that as you will always be subjected to their rules. If you are a baptized witness, you will always be, even if you've left them. So as soon as you put up some Christmas decorations, the elders will come a-calling. If ever you're caught breaking any of their rules, you will be hauled into a judicial committee. It's just the way it goes. So it's not true that you can just leave. You can just leave as long as you leave behind your family and everybody else, because they view you now as a threat. And they have to find a way to separate you from their group. Even though you're not doing anything wrong, you may not be saying anything negative about their members, or even trying to get people out of it. You know, we're not trying to pull people out of it, but people should hear the truth, but they don't want people to hear the truth, right? They want to be able to control all the information that their members have. So this is the way it really is, not the way he presented it at all. But on a positive side, there was some news media who covered the event and the outcome of this case, and they had some very favorable things to say about people who leave, and they interviewed some former witnesses like Christian and Katya, and they told the truth about shunning and what really happens. So this was really good to see. And now that the case is over, and like I said, it didn't go the way we wanted it to go, but I do want to congratulate Randy Wall for all the hard work that he did, and to say thank you to him, because this is not an easy thing for him to go through. And he worked really hard at this, and he really did try to bring out all the evidence he could. But as I said, it didn't work out, but thank you very much, Randy, for everything that you did. And before I conclude, I just want to say one more thing. There's a petition that is going around. I'd love for everybody to sign it. It doesn't matter what country you are in. It's going to be presented to the Quebec government next week, on Monday or Tuesday, I'm not sure. I think it's the 12th. But at any rate, it's asking for an inquiry here in Quebec. So into religions, all religions, and some of the horrible practices that are taking place. So I'm going to put a link, and within that link there's going to be an English translation, because it is in French. And I'd love it for you if you could sign this as soon as possible, please. Okay, so thank you all very much for being here, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Bye-bye.